Good day to you, noblest of Legion. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Today I Form It Out. Today we are looking at the curious case of the Quartak. Just uttering its name aloud surely tells you it is etymologically indigenous to the Grineer line of weaponry, as those clone compatriots just love their letter K. Drak, Hyeka, Kraken, Karak. At this point in time, I would not be surprised if the hard K sound is profanity in their language. To me, they always did seem a bit Volkar. Now you might be thinking, the naming conventions of the Grineer alone is not very curious. Well, here is something for you to ponder. What makes a weapon a weapon? How is one defined? We all have a knack for the ballistic basics, keep the bright end in the enemy's face and out of your own, but how do you classify one type from another? A sidearm compared to a thrown weapon is pittance to discern, but technically speaking, how is a rifle different from a shotgun? One is long-range specialized, the other close quarters and buckshot, or perhaps designed for those who are crosshair challenged, you could say. But what happens when a rifle and a shotgun's lines begin to blur? Where shall we draw that line? The Quartak, keeping with Grineer gun fashion, is both visually and mechanically an oddity. 4 cattle prod-like tips on the front, swooping bulbous nodes just behind them, being more reminiscent of infested or alien tech. In fact, if it wasn't for the conspicuously placed Grineer logo on the side and accompanying trim, you might not think it to be a Grineer tech weapon at all. One could even say this might be suspicious. But that's for another episode. It has wonderful amounts of both critical and status chance, making either builds viable if that is your choosing. It has a nearly even damage type split amongst the IPS spectrum, with puncture offering the least in that regard. The default reloading time isn't particularly painful, though the firing speed may be for some, and it even has a whopping 84 bullets per magazine. But while it is fired only once per semi-automatic means, each volley removes 4 rounds from said total, bringing us back to the question, how do you classify a space arm? We have a gun that fires 4 rounds with each pull of the trigger. Sounds like a shotgun. It does not fire buckshot, and albeit 4 simultaneously, it releases 1 round at a time. Sounds like a rifle. So which is it? Technically speaking, and Lotus help you with bylaws and jurisdictions, but a rifle is only thus due to actual rifling or corkscrewed grooves bored onto its barrel. A shotgun does not, and thus has a smooth bore variety. No rifling, no rifle. So which does the Quartak have? While it might be these old optics tricking my perceptions, I believe I can see the faintest of twists, making this a rifled barrel. So while cumbersome and woefully unorthodox, it is indeed a rifle. DE themselves declared it a rifle of their own volition, which does add a bit more officiality to that theorem. And of course, as a rifle as such, it is rife with all the tasty mods associated with that classification. Be that as it may, neither rifle nor shotgun might actually officially apply here, due to the many microscopic Loki-sized barrels. Any rifle or shotgun below 18 and 16 inches respectively is actually neither in the eyes of the Lotus. Anything less would be more akin to a sawn-off shotgun, as the spray would be far more random and destructive. But again, individual jurisdictions might affect the official classification slightly. How this weapon manages to suppress the excess reverberations of 4 barrels blasting at once and still succeeding to remain as highly accurate at range as it is with such minuscule barrels is surely some void magic. The Quartak boasts high build flexibility, astounding accuracy, decent and evenly split damage sure to endure the coming damage formulae changes on the horizon. But the diverse builds themselves require a great deal of mod slots, ironically limiting in its own way, and while it was just granted innate piercing, the slow fire rate will be a point of contention to most and a fatal flaw to some. That said, while there are much better options out there, I find the Quartak adequate. I've used much worse, but there is plenty of room for a powerful weapon in there. You might have to work at it, of course, and you could obviously prefer a weapon that doesn't require the excess effort. But while a bit clunky, this weapon is up for the task. I'd say be sure to claim yours today from a ghoul or ghoul-related bounty mission reward, but the invasions just ended. So stay tuned for future invasions to get your hands on it while that event lasts. You can also acquire the stub secondary by the same means, but that is for another episode. Until next we meet, keep your barrels bored and your ghouls gored. This is Today I Form It Out, signing off.